So we are on another episode. This episode is called Lovers of Self. We are still learning prevention of what men we do not want to attract. So lovers of selves, we're going to go to first, we're going to go to 2 Timothy 3, 1 and 2. Because this particular lovers of selves is going to definitely define what lovers of selves mean. Because lovers of selves could be a lot of things, a lot of different characteristics of lovers of self. And you're probably there before me, and I apologize. So 2 Timothy 3, 1 and 2. It says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, having nothing to do with Him." And who is Him? God. God is the source. And why is God the source? Because God is the source. He gives you the money to earn. If you look at Deuteronomy 8 and 18, he explains that you find your money and all the things that he provides for you, he's given it to you. He is your source. These things that we have on earth are our resources. Because if we look at Job 42:10, Job lost everything. When I say everything, he lost everything. But guess what? God restored it because he was obedient. He trusted in God. He didn't curse God like his wife. He lost his children. He lost his cattle. He lost his homes. And in a marriage, it's very important with money to not let it be the ruler or to marry for money. So I'm going to sing this song to you, and we're going to indulge and we're going to get live with this one because we want to make sure that we don't look at money in that way. We want to make sure that we understand this song that I'm going to sing by Mace. And my friend, me and Pierre, we sung it all the time in high school. It goes, "In my life, money comes and goes. Money comes and goes. Even when I'm moving slow, I ain't afraid to spend it 'cause it comes and goes. In my life, money comes and goes. Money comes and goes. Even when I'm moving slow, I'm not afraid to spend it 'cause it comes and goes." So Mace was a rapper. He was actually a part of this label. I won't say the name, but he became later a Christian and a pastor. But that was a song before he was, actually saved. And that's a very important song. He has so many great songs, but shout out to Mace. So who we're going to talk about today, and this person, we won't say his name, is related to what I was just saying, but if we look in the Bible and we see Pharaoh, Pharaoh was a lover of himself. So he was not a man after God's own heart, like what we spoke about prior to the men that were after God's own heart. Pharaoh was a man that killed little boys because he was so evil. He was so jealous. He was a man that had the Hebrews as slaves, working in the field for him. And he said in, the palace, him and his wives, him and his wife and all those women, they were taken care of with all type of incense and jewelry and all of those things that don't really have meaning. But Pharaoh had to realize that I am the Lord, as God has said in Jeremiah, as he has said in John, I am God. He said it so many times in the word. He said to revere him in 29 and 9. But yet Pharaoh said he was God, and he had to realize that God was not playing with him about his people. When he said, "Let my people go," God brought so many flies and locusts and killed so many people. But Pharaoh had so much anguish and so much hatred. He had this heart that he went through all those things and people were killed, and it took him so hard with his pride to fall to find and release the Hebrew people. And this is difficult when you are dealing with people that are lovers of themselves. So we're going to turn to a modern person that I look at his life and saw that his mindset was different. And it's okay to be cocky and confident. It's okay, to be swagged out for Jesus. But this person, I never saw him say anything about the Lord and the way that he treated people with his money, and also his life reflected it with his power and his fame. So let me give you a few of the things that happened. And I don't want to go into detail because I'm new to this. I don't want to be sued. I'm just giving, a modern reflection of someone. So he had a show on TV, and he was looking for people to sing, for him to start, music artists and different things like that. And so he would ask some of these people to rub his toes. He told them to walk to New York cheesecake to get him a cheesecake. When he had a car, he could have gotten his personal assistants to get those things. He was basically, in the news where people were, the artist was saying that they never was even paid. He produced the show on a live TV, so he had the money. And that's why when you realize these things, power overruled the money. He didn't respect people. He controlled them because he knew, I'm this person and I can make these people do this and that because they want what I have, which is fame and money. But when I looked at the situation and I realized lately in the news that he had went to jail for some of the allegations of abuse, I realized that Sodom and Gomorrah could have been a part of his life before he was a lover himself. There had to be a reason why he had a form of abuse that he took out on others. It had to be some childhood experience, because godliness was not in anything that he had shown on TV or around these people. So when we go back to Timothy 3:1 and 2, we saw all the things what lovers of self could do. So this is like building up from Sodom and Gomorrah, now lovers of ourselves, things, men that we want to prevent. This person had loved money. He was very boastful. He was very kind of more about, you would think that it was fun at first that he was rapping and dancing, but then you realize he's very boastful, very prideful. And I don't know if this person was disobedient to his parents. I do know he came from a single parent home. When I look at the scripture, it says ungrateful. So many people that are very talented like him that never received that kind of recognition, but he wasn't grateful or gracious with his. And loving, was he loving? Was he slanderous? Did those people get paid? So does that make for a good mate for someone that has those characteristics? No, it doesn't. And that's why it's only for me to talk about it for prevention, not to talk about anyone, because I pray that he will receive the change that he needs. So when that happens, God said he has nothing to do with him because they don't want anything to do with him, right? So as a woman, when we are in control of ourselves and we know ourselves, we want to make sure we have the checklist to understand that's not the type of man that I need. Now, if you knew anything about this rapper, it was another rapper. If you knew anything about this rapper, he said a song and he rapped the song. He said, "You don't want to be my age and can't read and write, begging grown women for a place to sleep at night." So what does that mean about you? If you have a grown man sleeping at your house, they look at you as a weak-willed woman, that they can gain control over your assets, over your home, and even your children. And so we want to make sure that we are very intentional about the men that we are potentially dating as godly men. So when we go here and we speak about us being women, we know that another rapper said a song about women, and he explained that he said, just like a bus route, everybody rides her. We don't want to be either a woman that has a promiscuous track record. And even if you do, it's okay to clean up yourself, because in Ezekiel, we know, and we'll talk about that later, we know that promiscuous behavior and lustful spirits came in the Bible during that time. So we want to make sure that we just go over a few more in-depth checklist questions and talk about a few more people in the Bible that were couples that were able to, that show wickedness, and how we don't want to be that type of couple when we get involved with a person that's a godly marriage or in a godly potential marriage, because we know we want to align with God's will. We know that marriage is ministry. We know that we have to take it seriously, because we could have children involved with this. We could be a part of a ministry, a church. We could be walking down the street and someone sees us and says, that's what I want to be, because we are uplifting the kingdom and everything with our marriage. Okay, so let's go over a few more things. So just to go back, let's go back to the men. Even if you are dating someone right now and you feel like this is speaking to me, Solomon Gomorrah and lovers of the self, this person can be that way because I'm seeing those characteristics and traits. We don't want you to speak about it to them. We want you to properly heal and pray for him and explain to that person that at this moment you need time, you need clarity. And it's okay. Many men always tell women they need time, they need clarity, because we know they could have trauma. They could have other things that they have not worked out with therapy or with a pastor or, biblical knowledge. They haven't read the word of God to know that these things are spirits that they've been basically assigned to this. So I want to make sure that you're careful, and I always want to make sure you're safe and protected. But in order for me to make sure that you are opening your heart to read these scriptures, I will make sure that these scriptures are going to be on the podcast notes. So the last thing that I want to say is, when you are dating someone, I always explain this, and I think prior in the interview, that we want to fully make sure that we have a background check. We ask the mom, who is their son, and hopefully they're honest with their decision. And that we ask the past girlfriends, what type of experience did they have with this man? Because you want to know before what you're getting into, before you shouldn't even have to open up your legs, but before you even talk to them, go on a date, further dates with them, discuss anything about marriage or, children or any of those things, because you need to know how they grew up as a child. You need to know those things. So when I say that, going to leave this last checklist, there are too many women with children that feel like they need a partner. And I'm a strong woman. I've never thought I needed a partner until I met this guy at Delta Airline named Reggie, that I thought he was my partner. But I realized, hold up, they don't love you like I love you. Slow down. They don't love you like God loves you. So I had to realize, no, he wasn't. He was not it. But then, without prayer, it leads to desperation. And children are harmed, which are innocent. Predators and molesters. We don't know anyone's background unless we dig deeper, right? Unless we go online, do some research. Facebook is not always going to tell you things. Even with me, like, to be honest with my story, when I met my son's father, he told me he didn't have any kids. And then when I had my child, realizing that he had more than enough kids. But why didn't I know? Because I feel like Department of Children and Families is just a business. They could be putting a website showing what men have kids or not. They can actually put up a website about people that have felonies and all these type of, jail felonies and misdemeanor. I don't even know all the names of what they called it, but you can put that out. But those people, they can be bonded. But children's lives are important. That can never be changed when you don't know that person. So you have to really research, in all honesty, talk to the past and look at your present. But I was saying that because children are innocent and they should not be harmed. And so instead we should be praying and reading our word for godly marriage and for godly protection, which is Psalms 91. And we want protection. We want protection. So now that we've done with lovers of self, we're going to talk about some couples in the Bibles, and we're going to talk about men of deprived minds. We're going to all add it together. So that way we'll know when we become married in our relationships, what things that we need to avoid. So let's look at two couples here, and their names were Ananias and Sapphira, if I'm saying that correctly. You know how the Bible names are, and I could be saying it wrong. So they were married. They were in a relationship, and they were deceivers. They were apostles, and they basically were deceivers because they lied. They had a lying spirit, and they were deceitful. They actually stole money from the church, and we hear that a lot, now in the modern days, but we never really probably might have never known about these two because their name was only mentioned one time. They were basically kind of what we know now that, churches, people have money, get involved in church, and then they get lured with the money instead of using it for the purpose or just stealing it and then leaving. People don't know where they went. And this is where it started right here. This was a couple, was a man and a woman. It started in the Bible, and I'm going to put the scripture up in the podcast so we'll know. So that was that couple. But then we know the act of deceit for man was Judas. And so he betrayed God at his last supper. Just imagine your last time being on earth and you're eating with people that you thought was your girls or your homeboys, or just like these were his disciples. So he walked with these people. He trained these people. He taught these people. And he betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. That was an act of deceit. So we're talking about these things because men minds can change. They can be deprived because they see values different than, basically, they see money, they see opportunity more than they see what is most important, which was Jesus, because Jesus was teaching them the way of life, the way to get to heaven. And Judas, I don't know what color Judas was. We know that there was a lot of people in the Bible that shows that they were Ethiopian, but either way, we know people are deceitful no matter what their color is. And we know we've seen this in the workplace. We've seen this in the church. We've seen this even in marriages. Deceit can turn into deadly things, and people's lives are always forever changed. So I just wanted to give you some background on how it all started. Now, the last person is Jane and Jambri. So they were two people in the Bible, and they didn't deceive Jesus. They were actually opposing against Moses. And so what they were opposing, because Moses was God's chosen, but they opposed the truth. So they went against Moses. And that's part of basically not, following after leadership what God had provided for them, and to oppose it. Because when people oppose what God is doing, that causes division. And so that's the reason why this group of people were selected for lovers of themselves and men of deprived minds. So how can one have a deprived mind? How does this come about? So we have a few of the checklists of why. So the first thing is they rejected God, as we saw in 1 Timothy 3:1 and 2. They rejected God. They did not acknowledge faith. They became foolly men. What does that mean? A man that had no vision, no clear vision. They didn't ask for wisdom. They didn't ask God to help them with their plan, and their strategy. And they decided to be foolly by running to the world and chasing after the things of the world. So Paul was a disciple of Jesus. And what he said is, while evil man and impossible to go from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. And so that's very important to understand, because I don't know if you ever heard of this show. I'll say her name, Tamron Hall. There was a lady on the show, but it turned into a positive for her. She was dating someone, and they basically, I do believe that she dated him, and she allowed him to come into her home, and he deceived her. He took some money from her. It was like big numbers of money. But she turned that L, which is a loss, into a positive and wrote a book, and she was on Tamron Hall show explaining. And I was like, that's a blessing. She bossed up and made it a way for her to make an income about her story and make money. But some women don't get that opportunity. Some women are deceived. They're dating someone and intimate with someone, and this person is intimate with other people, and this woman could be catching HIV or AIDS, or there could be women that are deceived, where the man is saying that you are the only woman, but he is out here having multiple women and having sex with multiple men, and that does something to your mind, right? I have seen women on the news that have killed themselves because they got involved heavily, or might have been married or in a relationship, and were in love and have saw, the man or woman that they love in the bed with other women. There are so many deceptions out here, even with money. As we speak about money, there's so many deceptions with money where couples have, been invested with money, and they forget about the reunion where it started. So, when it comes to the prenups and when it comes to not having one, we saw a singer, and I love her music. She's the best. Like, she's been around for so long as an R&B singer. And I've never known a man that will come behind a woman and take all of her assets for singing when he didn't even work hard for the things that she had when she was just a singer. Like, years ago, she started out so young. She had a song, "Real love, I'm searching for a real love, someone that kept my heart." And so she was searching for that real love years ago, and she thought she found it with this person that was in the music industry, and later realizing that the marriage did not work, and she had to get a divorce. And after that divorce, she has to pay him each month alimony. And I just don't think that's manly for me. I know I'm not a man, but I don't feel like that's manly to take someone's earnings when you went into the marriage with the vows, knowing to death do us part. And when you apart, why are you still getting the earning? Death did not. We didn't leave together. We were divorced. So we just want to make sure that we have an understanding that when we get into a marriage, what that person earned and what you earned, if you're together, then it's on your terms. If you want it to be equally, to have the money together. But this is why we want not unequally yoked marriage. We want marriages that are equal. We want marriages that know that finances are going to be up and down, because we have to choose God in everything with wisdom, preparation, and kingdom mindsets that, You won't have to worry about the finances in your marriage, that you'll have a game plan. So, as a result of all the lovers of selves and the two couples and all the checklists, I hope that this episode gave you clear understanding of the prevention of what we will not do. We will not do and what we'll prepare for when the time is right with God.